Welcome to the EcoBees in Use How-To series. In this video, we'll teach you the basics of meliponiculture. This video is divided into 5 parts, namely hunting, hiving, monitoring, splitting, and harvesting. Stay tuned to learn more about each part. Part 1. Hunting. Bees, like most creatures, are found in the wild. These are what we call the feral colonies. In natural conditions, they are found nesting on hollow trunks, ferns, live tree holes, and empty containers. They could be either close-nested or open-nested. The ones being shown are examples of open-nested feral colonies. You may ask, how do we find these feral colonies? Hunters locate the feral colonies by observing the workers and following them to their nesting areas. Once they find it, the hunters begin with their preparations, one of which is wearing the appropriate gear for the job. Despite the bees not having any stingers, it's still in their nature to protect their hive. Hence, it is advised to protect vulnerable parts of your body, especially from the neck up. A bee veil like this one could do the job, but we prefer to use a modified hooded long sleeve with a metal screen that has fine holes small enough to protect you from the bees. Hunters would also have a sharp tool with them to carefully detach the colony from its nesting area, leaving out a small amount for the feral colony to recover. They make sure to lower the colony in its original orientation to prevent the honey from spilling on the brood. The collected colonies are then packed in individual sacks and transported to the apiary. Part 2. Hiving. Colonies from the wild are transferred to boxes or cocoa shells to provide a safe container for the hives. The collected colonies usually have pollen and honey pots on the outer leaves of the fern. We clean up the feral colony by using a cutter to separate the brood to be transferred from the leaves, involucrum, cerumen, and propolis. After cleaning, you can put the honey and pollen aside for later. We can see that the collected feral colony has already split itself naturally. From this feral colony alone, we are able to make 2 new colonies in box. After cleaning, we can see that the brood is then transferred to the first box. Slowly lower the brood inside the box, being extra careful to not let the brood get soaked by the honey. Once the brood is settled in the center, you may now place the honey and pollen around it. Now we'll see the transferring of the feral colony to the second box. Like the first one, we carefully place the brood in the middle and place the honey and pollen pots around the brood. If the brood appears to be too big, you can trim off some of the pollen pots in order to make the brood fit inside. With this, we have 2 boxes from 1 feral colony. We place the trimmings near the 2 boxes so that the bees can recover and retrieve more of the honey and pollen from the trimmings. These are the boxes designed by the EcoBees in order to provide a safe and clean place for the stingless bee to thrive in. Taking a closer look at the box, we see 4 holes, 1 on each side. This is to give the bees the freedom to choose which hole to use as their entrance to their hive. Now we see one of our trainees. He is carefully cleaning yet another feral colony that we hunted. After cleaning the feral colony, the trainee then prepares to transfer the brood to the halved coconut shells. The brood is then placed carefully on the baseboard with cocoa shells. This method of hiving is what we call the traditional method of hiving. In the traditional method, half coconut shells are used to cover the entire colony. The shells are then tied together to fasten the newly transferred brood in place. Once the colonies have been transferred to either boxes or cocoa shells, they are then placed on hive stands to prevent ants and frogs from coming into contact with the hives. They can be placed in individual stands or continuous platforms. They can even be placed hanging on a tree. You can place additional protection from heavy rains such as anahaw leaves or metal sheets. Used oil is applied on the stand to prevent ants and termites from disturbing the colony. Part 3. Monitoring. Once your meliponary is set up, as beekeepers, we should also monitor and inspect the health and status of our colonies. Monitoring is done to determine the strength of the colony, to know whether we can harvest products, and to examine for possible pests inside the hive. You can consider a colony to be a strong one if they have an entrance with a width of 1 to 2 centimeters and the fly tube, which is slightly moist propolis, protrudes from the holes. For the brood, it must have more than 5 layers. The diameter may vary depending on the kind of hive used, be it box or cocoa shells. Young brood are dark in color, while light-colored brood are the pupa. A strong colony has numerous adults found as guards on the hive entrances and are crawling out and about the hive and cerumen. Pollen and honeypots are usually found around the brood area and near the hive entrances. These are the clearest indicators that you can harvest the products in the hive. Not all colonies are created equal though. Some colonies will unfortunately have pests and damages to their hives. Here we see the hives with dry propolis and hives with pests disturbing their colony, ultimately leading to the loss of the colony. These are the things the beekeeper must keep a lookout for when monitoring. Part 4. Splitting. Swarming is the natural process of colony division. However, it can cause death to the colony. As such, early division or splitting is needed to keep the colony alive. From monitoring, we are able to determine whether a colony is a candidate for splitting. When that colony is deemed worthy to be a candidate, we remove the top board, then replace it with a splitter like this one. The EcoBees in you designed this splitter for a successful division of colony without disturbing the mother colony. This type of splitter is used for nucleus production. As we can see, there are 3 holes. The large hole in the center is for the brood to pass through, while the 2 small holes serves as a passageway for the bees. We use 2 splitter layers to prevent disturbing the mother colony when natural division occurs. We then place a super over the mother colony. As time goes by, the colony will arrange the brood in the center and will pass through the splitter going to the super. A new colony will develop in the super. Once the colony inside the super is strong enough, you can now separate the colony from the mother colony below. For cocoa shell hives, we put 4 to 5 layers of brood on top of the bottom board. We then add pollen and honey pots, then cover with 4 to 5 clean cocoa shells. After this, we tie the shells together to protect the brood. Once the shells are covered with propolis by the bees, this can be separated from the mother colony. Part 5. Harvesting. Honey, pollen, and propolis can be harvested from strong colonies. Each coconut shell is checked for the product by piercing the eye on the shell. A white substance would indicate the brood, a cream or yellow powder for the pollen, and a sweet or brown substance for the honey. For the honey, we remove the honey pots and extract by using a spoon. Strain the honey and transfer into a sterilized bottle. Let it stand for 3 days or more to separate honey from the pollen. The drip method could be used to extract the honey as well. For the pollen, the pots are scooped using a small metal spoon. We allow the bees to forage on the pollen in a specific area, where they are able to clean the propolis and pollen pots. Once cleaned, the pollen can be placed in a dehumidifier to reduce the moisture. For the propolis, it is harvested from the boxes or shells. These are then washed and dried, then placed in clean containers. For processing, clean propolis is placed in the refrigerator for 4 hours. Once crisp, the propolis is pounded into smaller particles and placed in a jar with ethanol for extraction. After 2 weeks, the ethanol is harvested for further purification. Wax is harvested from the honey and pollen pots from which the honey and pollen were harvested. We put the pots in a pan with water. Allow this to boil, and once the pots are melted, we add cold water, which then allows the wax to float. We remove the wax, wash out the impurities with tap water. Once again, we melt the wax in boiling water. We add cold water, melt, and mold before it hardens completely. These are the basics of meliponiculture. I hope you have learned something today. Thank you for watching. Peace be with you.